Welcome back to our real estate morning show. We're coming off of an amazing weekend of the Ryder Cup that made us want to do nothing but own a house on a golf course. So we're going to take a look at that, some cleaning tips, along with the rest of the real estate news. Let's jump right in. Okay, welcome to our show. This week, or to start us off, really I gotta say I enjoyed watching the little bits of the Ryder Cup that we saw so much. Definitely the best golf tournament all year for entertainment value. Every hole matters.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you were mentioning that if you went to a golf event, that it would have to be the Ryder Cup. The rest of them not as interesting.
I absolutely went on to the Ryder Cup for 2020 and looked into how to get tickets because it's in Wisconsin in 2020. So.
There you go, much more reasonable.
Yeah.
But anyways, watching the golf, those crowds are way too big. I would not want to live on one of those golf courses. But I started thinking, I'm like, I love houses that back onto golf courses. When we're playing the course, I like looking up at them. St. Andrews over there, this is a couple of very beautiful ones, especially the way the houses are even woven through the golf course is done very nicely.
Yeah.
And so I pulled a few listings of homes that are available in the GTA right now that back onto golf courses or they're in golf course communities.
Okay.
And so just to give a couple of shout outs while the pictures go here, Wycliffe Gardens, Beacon Hall, Ballantrae, Woodbridge, Angus Glen, Thornhill Country Club, Bayview Country Club. That's where all these pictures are coming from right now. And these are some pretty nice spots.
Those are some nice spots. So what's the difference now between a golf community and being on a golf course?
Yeah, so the community ones, they're typically more condos. Like they're detached homes, you own the house, but you're a part of a community in the sense that the land and all that is still common elements.
Okay. Yeah. So it's like a land lease.
Well, yeah,
Got it.
exactly.
All right.
And then the freehold ones are, closer to like the Bayview and Thornhill. Like those ones are freehold that are, backing onto the golf course.
Got it.
Whereas Ballantrae, Beacon Hall, ones like that, they're condo. Like the community. Some of them are even gated communities. So.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
And I think there's just something so peaceful about being able to sit at your backyard and look over the golf course. Some of them are tucked in nicely between trees and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think the only downside would be if you're too close to a tee or too close to where people drive and, that's where balls are getting shanked. That's really the only downside that I see.
Yeah, I mean, I know I've had listings in the past and they've been on golf courses. And for the most part, they've been pretty solid in their location that they're not really in an area where balls are coming to. Because that was always my big thing that I don't like about it. It's like I wouldn't want to be, out in the pool or chilling in the backyard and then worrying that a golf ball is going to smash my window because that's how my brain works.
100%.
But I think that's an important element to think about. Where are you located? Because I've seen other ones where the backyard is covered in golf balls.
Yes.
Right? And I know I've hid into backyards.
Yeah.
I know you have.
I've definitely hidden back. It's actually, when I was thinking about this, I remembered it was our third Keller Williams family reunion or conference that we go to annually.
That's right.
And we went golfing down in Phoenix.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of still getting into golf because we'd really started more when we started dating. Mm-hmm. And man, those courses, they were so lined with houses. There wasn't a lot of give like we have up here around.
Yeah.
And I definitely hit 6 houses or into at least a bunch of yards because my drive was just so it's bad news.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think that's enough of that one. Why don't we jump into what you got for us today?
Yeah, sure. My first topic today is just some household cleaning tips. So we're getting into the fall. Kids are back at school.
Yeah.
We're starting to get into that. Summer's over. You might be starting to do a deep clean. So what I wanted to look into was good tips and tricks for cleaning, but not necessarily it taking too long. So little techniques you can use that are going to help you.
This isn't a subtle hint to me, is it?
It's always a subtle hint. Yeah.
All right.
Anyway, so the first one, there's a bunch of them in the link. There's I think 10 or so. I picked out a couple that I like the best that I hadn't actually heard before.
I'm taking notes as we go.
Okay, I can see you. The first one is actually for your faucets. So if you have mildew, buildup, calcium, lime, any of that sort of stuff, instead of trying to get the expensive sprays and do all of that, if you take vinegar, and you can actually buy household cleaning vinegar now. So it's actually stronger than cooking vinegar. So if you are shopping, look for that. Put it in a Ziploc bag and put the head into the Ziploc bag and then just rubber band it.
Yeah.
Let it soak for a little while and then just wash it off. Apparently, It'll clean that mildew and that buildup right off, and it also shines up any of the stainless steel.
Perfect.
If you have that going on as well. So
that's a good tip.
Really good tip, nice and easy, cheap, right?
Yeah,
so,
especially when you notice like the water from the faucet starts coming out at weird angles and stuff like that. You got calcium buildup.
Yeah, you got to get in there. The second one that I love, because I actually never really think about it, is cleaning your lampshades. Yes. Right? So I always use the vacuum. It drives me crazy. It's a pain in the butt. Lint rollers.
Oh,
just use your lint roller on your lampshades. I also read that for, I believe it was your Venetian blinds. Just lint roll them instead of trying to take them off and soak them. Apparently, if you do that consistently enough, it takes care of all of the dust. So nice little trick there. The third one is a toilet bowl. Okay. So we can get into all sorts of chemicals and disinfectants and all that stuff, which obviously you're going to need. Mm-hmm. But if you want a quick clean and you've just done a nice freshening on it, you want to clean up the water, just throw some toothpaste in it. Let it sit for a minute, flush it, it freshens up the bowl. So if you're short on cleaning products and you need a quick fix, you got some toothpaste handy, or Listerine, what's the mouthwash, either or, both do the trick. Toothpaste also, if you're trying to get kids' crayons off of floors or off of walls.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, put some toothpaste on it for a minute. Let it sit. If it's really bad, mix some toothpaste and baking soda. Let it sit for about 5 minutes and wipe it off. Okay. Apparently it'll take the crayon right out. So there you go. And my final one, which I really like as well, is if you ever have a glass stovetop, like we have one here. Sometimes stuff spills over, gets burnt on the top, and it can stain or get cooked in, and it's kind of a pain to clean it off, right? If you take a razor, like a razor edge, and you put it at a 45-degree angle, and you just scrape it, it'll actually go right in under the gunk, but it won't scratch the surface, and it'll scrape it right off. Okay. So I feel like you probably got to practice that a couple of times. Yeah. But apparently once you get the hang of it, it's a really fast way to clean your glass.
Everybody that watches this episode is getting like scratched up top.
We're going to get blamed for millions.
There's a disclaimer somewhere on this video.
And sorry, actually I have one more that I also really like, because I haven't heard this one before. For your garbage disposal, stuff gets stuck down there, gets kind of smelly sometimes. Apparently if you throw some ice down there, let it break around a bit, it kind of tends to freeze everything, and then chuck some salt into it and just let it be. It will break down a lot of the stuff that's stuck to it, and it'll kill the smell.
Interesting.
So I've heard lemons before, which I know a lot of people say put a lemon down there and just let it go. But this is a new one, so give that one a try and just let it run for a couple of minutes once you put the salt in. Apparently the salt does something that breaks down everything with the ice. So there you go.
Cool.
Yeah. How's cleaning tips for the day?
That's a good list.
Yeah, I thought so.
All right, the news piece of real estate industry news and whatnot that I want to jump into today is the mortgage stress test becoming an election issue. The Conservatives are pushing for this a lot. I think it's something that's on a lot of people's mind, just in general, and I think we can point to it for having a big impact on the market as well. Yeah. And so the article that I read is essentially talking about how, one, they want to make an election issue for next year. And the Conservatives have put forth 2 motions trying to get a study done on the impact of the stress test of the B20. And it's been shot down both times by the Liberals. And so, I looked around and honestly, I didn't see much comment made from any of the Liberal Party on why they shut it down. And I do think that, doing a study on something like this makes sense. I'm for it. I say do the study and then figure out what's going on. A couple of the Conservative members that are pushing for this, they're not saying we want to get rid of it. They're just saying, hey, let's do the study and see if we should adjust it or not, because the 200 basis points is pretty big. Do we make an adjustment or not? And I do agree that it's made a big impact. So seeing some kind of adjustment, or at least seeing the study and saying, hey, is this safe enough? Is it too safe? Right. Can we make an adjustment and find some middle ground? Yeah. I don't know. I'm interested in that. Any comments to add?
I mean, not really. I agree with you. I think that I'm surprised that the assessments aren't part of the process. I mean, when you do something with that significant of a change that you're hoping to have a big impact economically, why wouldn't you be doing the studies so that even future decisions, 10, 20, 50 years down the road, they can refer back to and go, hey, these were the results of this. Exactly. And, it did work this way, or we overdid it, or we didn't do it enough, whatever the case may be.
Exactly. And I don't think it is in this case that they overdid it, but what if they find like, hey, okay, we did the study and really this isn't this isn't helping us. We do need to take another step further.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah, interesting.
Anyways.
I'd love to know more about it. I'm going to bank on the fact that it's election year coming up. We've got like municipal elections as well, so maybe people are just kind of hesitant to say anything, really.
Yeah.
Right?
So there are two other points actually that I do want to bring up. One is I hope that this just isn't just a political move of them saying like, oh look, and we're going to put the Liberals down because of this big adjustment that it had, and you know they ruined the housing. I don't want it to be that. I'm hoping that it'll just be a study and say, hey, is this working? Is this too much? Is there some middle ground where we can still get a benefit to protect everybody, but doesn't hurt the housing sector as much? And two, oh man, I forgot what two was. Move on, come back to me, and we'll go from there, because I did have something else that I wanted to talk about in that regard.
Well, my topic is...
I just remembered.
All right, go ahead.
I just remembered. I think part of the problem that I've been reading and what they've saying with this study and them making an election issue is it's affected such a small amount of the population in terms of the ones that really can't buy because of this.
Yeah.
And because our sales are down anyway, it's hard to really express how much this is hurting Canadians, like specifically born here Canadians that are that haven't been able to keep up with the housing market going as high as it has, and then adding the stress test on, you know, Canadians that are making Canadian wages are having such a hard time getting into this. So you know,
just to see where that falls in with the
and
overall
they're
situation.
concerned that it's going to be a hard point to get across to people,
right?
Because it has affected. You know, if we're talking about 50,000 people weren't able to buy this year, you know, it's a big number, but overall, in terms of election terms, it's pretty small.
Yeah. Well, I would love to see it, so maybe one day they'll get on board and agree on something. My last topic is on the CMHC rules changing for self-employed people when it comes to getting lending. So basically, this takes effect today. It's come out. So what it means is that the changes are getting applied to borrowers who are putting less than 20% down and seeking CMHC default insurance, and in some cases to people who are putting more than 20% down, but the lenders are still requiring them to get CMHC insurance, and obviously self-employed specifically. So what's been going on, a little bit of background, it's been very difficult for people who are self-employed to get lending, especially when you need a minimum of 24 months of history to show income. They didn't take projected sales or anything like that into account. So now a lot of that has changed. So what they've actually started to do is basically say that they're allowing self-employed people with less than 2 years history to still qualify, as long as they have enough cash reserves or they have predictable earnings, or if they're buying a business that was already previously established and they can show those financials. So a little bit more wiggle room there. Yeah,
I think that's a good thing. I think it's not that point in itself. I don't know what the rest of them are coming up, but doesn't help enough, because a lot of people do have, you know, 2 years history that they can prove, especially if they're getting ready to buy a house. You don't start a business and then 1 year later you're like buying your house or whatever. So I don't think that that's quite enough to fix, but it is helpful.
Yeah, it's something. Because, you know, being in the industry we're in, we both know that it's very challenging for people who are self-employed to qualify at the same level as people who have a salaried income, right? So it does help a little. It allows you to show more, so they're taking more into consideration. I agree with you. Not enough, I don't think, but at the same time,
good step.
It's a good step. The next thing that they're also allowing now is they're adding additional documents. So income documentation that will now satisfy requirements that it didn't previously used to satisfy. The main two specifically are the Canada Revenue Notice of Assessment. So it states your gross and your net. So they're not just looking at your net line anymore. They're looking at the whole assessment. And then also your statement of business or professional activities, which breaks down all the categories and where your money is being spent. So what that means is essentially they're not allowing it to be your gross, but they're looking at how the money is being spent. So they're making more of an allowance based on those documents. Right now, those are the only two major things that are shifting. And it is important to note that these aren't actually guidelines that are enforced. They're just guidelines that lenders can now apply. So a lot of lenders, TD specifically, are basically saying we're still going on a case-by-case basis. So it depends on everything else, your big picture, which is always the case for self-employed purchasers anyway, right? It's always about your assets and what you have in the bank and all that sort of extra stuff, right? Your history, everything. So we're not saying that you're guaranteed that these will be accepted now. That's not what they're saying. They're just saying if a lender so chooses, they can use them in lieu of what the old process would have been. About 15% of all Canadians right now are self-employed. So not a huge number, but it is growing annually. And that's the sector that we're seeing the biggest growth.
Yeah.
And I think as technology and all that changes,
100%.
This is going to become a much bigger issue.
Yeah.
My thought on it overall right now is it's not a large enough portion of the population for them to make major changes.
Yeah.
But at least they're acknowledging it.
Yeah, I'm okay with
it's a start.
that.
So,
yeah, I'm okay. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, that's our show today.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, why don't you sign us off?
All right. Well, thanks for joining us. As always, the links to the different articles are going to be down in the description. Don't forget to subscribe. We're going to be putting out shows every Tuesday and every Thursday for you.
Yep.
And, any feedback, any comments you might have, we love to hear from you. Anything we can do to help make it more fun for you, let us know, please. We'd love to take a look at your thoughts. And thanks for joining us.